Today is Friday, November the 8th, 2019, and the location of the interview is in Kennewick, Washington, at the Standout. I am interviewing Ernest McColley, a veteran of the Vietnam War, and he left the service as a Specialist 5. Ernest was born on August the 20th, 1948. Dixie Ferguson and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview today. We represent the Blue Mountain chapter of the American Red Cross, Walla Walla, Washington. And just once again, Ernest, what war and branch of service you served?
What war? Vietnam War. I was in the Army.
All right. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
Okay. And where were you when you were drafted?
I was right here in the Tri-Cities. I've lived here all my life. I was working at a pellet mill in Burbank, and I got my draft notice. I just got raised to a foreman position, and the boss was a little bit upset when I walked in and told him I had to go.
Was he more upset than you were?
A little bit. I was, I was taking it here or there. I have the feeling I've had 4 uncles, a granddad that served in the military. My dad didn't serve with my brother, but I always felt that it's part of our duty to serve the country. Mm-hmm. That's part of our, to me, that's part of our responsibility to keep this country free.
Thank you for that. And were you kind of expecting that draft notice?
Yeah, I was, because there was a lot of friends of mine that we just got out of school and stuff that were getting drafted and going into the service. And so I sort of figured it would be a good hit that I'd probably end up going, because I didn't go to college because my grades weren't good enough, and I was a little bit of a troublemaker type.
Not too much.
No, but that's enough that I couldn't get into college.
So they didn't disappoint you with the draft letter?
No.
Okay. And so it was automatic that it was going to be the Army because you were drafted?
Well, at that time they were taking Army, and then they were taking some of the guys and putting them into the Marines too, but I felt, yeah, it was probably going to be the Army. But I was really surprised when they, because they give you a little test, and I scored high enough that they sent me to Fort Sam Houston, Texas for medical school.
All right. Mm-hmm. And was that an okay choice as far as you were concerned?
Yeah, I felt that whatever they wanted me to do, I was going to do. Right. That was the way I felt. Whatever the military wanted was what I would do.
Excellent. So, so you got the draft notice, and then how soon after did you report, and where did you report to?
I can't remember exactly how long it was, but we got inducted in Spokane, Washington. They put us on a train, sent us to Fort Lewis, and at Fort Lewis is when they give us our orders to where we were going, to what place, and that's when I got my orders to go to San Antonio, Texas. But between that, I got Ptomaine Poisoning out of Spokane, wherever we had our meal. And I ended up the first 3 days in the military in the hospital with Ptomaine Poisoning. So I didn't get with the original group. I had to spend an extra week at Fort Lewis, and then they sent me down to Fort Sam Houston to medical school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how long was the medical school?
Medical school was just 10 weeks. We had basic training down there, and then we went into medical school, which was 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. And they had just reduced it from 16 weeks because they had an influx of loss of medics in Vietnam, and so they shortened it to 10 weeks. So they crowded 16 weeks into 10 weeks with us.
That probably wasn't real comforting.
No, because after I got there, I I wondered how much I'd missed because of falling asleep, because we worked so many extra hours, and how much I'd missed that way. And so I had a lot of problems. Yeah.
Critical information, absolutely. So it was after the 10 weeks, and did you get your assignment? By the way, did you like the training?
Oh, the training was fantastic. I mean, we got really, as far as the training, from what I've gathered afterwards, the training was excellent. After I got out of AIT, which is the medical school, they didn't ship me right to Vietnam. I got sent back to Fort Lewis for 6 months.
At the Vatican?
Yeah, well, no, I was working under the 551st Medivac, which was the unit that supplied all the medical support for the artillery range, the mortar range, the gun ranges out at Fort Lewis. So we was medics out on the, while they were training.
Good practical training in the meantime. Okay, and then you got your orders you knew you were going to go to Vietnam.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
pretty much. It was pretty much a given.
They didn't disappoint. Did you go out from Travis, or how did you get over to Vietnam?
We went from we left out. I think they sent us to California, and then we left from California. We made a stop in Hawaii, a short stop while they refueled and everything, and then we went to Vietnam.
Was it a contracted aircraft full of?
We flew on Braniff. Braniff Airlines is who we flew with.
All military going over.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of them were going that way.
Ernest, do you remember the flight over? Was it quiet? Was it rambunctious?
It was pretty quiet. It was pretty sobering, really. I mean, there was a few guys that had been over there, were going back for another tour. They were a little more active, but the guys that were like me and a lot of the others that were first time over, it was pretty sobering, pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Because of all what we heard, you didn't realize how short your life could be or whether you were coming back or not. So
realizing probably the statistics weren't so great.
No.
Yeah.
And then especially the field that I was in, medics were really being wasted quick.
Yeah, you bet. Boy, what a noble MOS though, my goodness. So where did you fly into then?
We flew into, what was it? Trying to remember for sure where we went in.
Was it like
it was an international it was the international airport there.
Saigon or Tan Son Nhut?
Tan Son Nhut's where it was. We went into Tan Son Nhut. When we got off the plane, most of the time they kept them there for a week to 10 days before they shipped into the companies that they were going to. Another medic, there was 10 medics on the flight that went into that country at the same time. Me and another medic got put into the 2nd and the 5th Air Cav, and they flew us out the 3rd day we were there. Most of the rest of the guys stayed longer, but they were short-handed. They'd already had some other medics get killed in 2nd and the 5th, so they put us right over there. And so we got inducted quite quickly as far as right into the combat area.
Yeah. And where was your base camp?
Tay Ninh was the main area where the 2nd and the 5th, the cab was located. Our LZ was what they call LZ Ike. It was fire support base Ike to start with, because they changed it later to fire support. But that was we were a mile and a half off of the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Tay Ninh province.
Yep.
Yeah. And can you describe the first few days when you got into Tay Ninh? your base camp, what that was like?
Well, it was, the first couple of days were pretty quiet. The third day, they hit us with a mortar and rocket attack. And then we were still at the rear. We were in Tay Ninh itself. Then we got transported out to the LZ and assigned to our companies. I got put into Delta Company. The other medic that him and I went together got put into Echo Company, which is a mortar platoon. The company I got assigned to was just getting ready to leave the LZ when I got there, so I didn't stay on the LZ very long, and I was out in the jungle already.
Nice. Ernest, can you describe that, going out into the boonies, the jungle? How did you get there, and how did you live there?
Well, the first trip we made, we walked right out of the LZ right into the jungle and walked on out. And it's, to me, I've hunted since I was 14 years old. So it was a little bit like a hunting trip, but it was more intense because you knew that there was people out there that were ready to shoot and kill you if they had a chance. So your alertness was a lot higher.
Hyper-vigilant.
You slept, but you didn't sleep. A lot of people don't realize what that is. They say, well, if you go to sleep, you're asleep. Mm-hmm. Well, no, because any little sound, you're awake. And
what did you carry? What did you have on you?
I carried a medical pack, plus I carried all of my personal supplies for food and stuff. And I carried an extra 2 gallons of water for medical purposes. My pack weighed a little over 165 pounds.
Unbelievable. And hot.
Yeah, we sweat. I left here in April, which was fairly cool. But I go over there and it's like 120 degrees and the humidity is like you're getting out of a bath shower.
Yeah. So you literally hiked out into the jungle.
Yes.
And did you set up, were you on a mission to go search and destroy, or what were you doing?
Yeah, we had certain areas to go to, and we would go a certain distance. We'd go maybe 2 or 3 clicks, which is about 2 or 3 miles. And then we would set up what we call a FOB, where you make a circle with guys out around it, making bunkers, digging foxholes. And then you set up trip flares and claymore mines. And then you have what is a 3-man foxhole. And you set it up that way. And you wait and hope nobody comes. And if they do, you hope you're ready for them.
Yeah. How many, was it a squad or how many?
No, it was a company,
company.
About 180 guys.
Yeah. So would you stay in one place for any length of time?
We would FOB that night, and then the next day we'd move another 2 miles, set up another FOB, and just kept doing that. And you were in the field anywhere from 25 to 30 days.
Did you get back in?
Then you go back to the LZ. And usually when you went back to the LZ, they would bring in choppers and pick you up and fly you back into the LZ because you were so far out. Not
only that, I can't imagine, even you're young, but the exhaustion.
Well, you know, it's hard to say, but most guys were in pretty good physical shape. And the exhaustion wasn't, you didn't have it because of the anxiety you had and the adrenaline going through you. You didn't pass around. I mean, you were moving and you knew you had to stay alert. You knew you had to, until you got back to the rear, like to the LZ. But even at the LZ, that was the worst place to be. I'd have rather been in the jungle than I would have been on the LZ.
Kind of like a sitting target there?
Yeah, the LZ is setting target. They set up and shoot rockets in on you and mortars, and where in the jungle, you can be moving and hiding where they can't find you all the time.
Could you move really quietly?
Yeah, it was pretty, you could move pretty quiet. I mean, there were times that we were in some of the jungle that was denser and it was more dead downfall that you were stepping on, but you could move pretty quiet. Even for 180 guys, it's pretty quiet moving.
Yeah. So in a month's time, how many times would you set up what you call the
A
FOB?
FOB in a month's time, every night,
Every night, a new place.
new place, just about every time. Sometimes we would stay one extra day, but most of the time we were moving.
How did you keep all your supplies going?
They brought in helicopters every 5 days and resupplied us. So you carried water and food for 5 days, and if we got hit by, say we got hit by the enemy, and as a medic we used up a bunch of our supplies, they would bring in a special bird with medical supplies for us.
Drop it in?
They would either drop it in, or if we could find a landing zone where a chopper could sit down, they'd bring it in.
So Ernest, in a year's time, what % of the time were you out in the field?
Well, the last 3 months I was in country, I was in the rear. They tried pulling most guys back for the last 3 months. The rest of the time, probably 3/4 of that time that was left, we were in the field.
And you're always sleeping, eating, walking with stress.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a hard question,
Sure.
but when was the first time that you were probably hit at one point?
My first time I was hit was, we went out the first time I was in the group, we went out for just 2 weeks. They brought us back, and we got hit by a sniper, and my company I was assigned to went out to take the sniper out, and we formed what they called an L attack. It's just you put one point man, and then there's everybody L's off of that, and the sergeant was the center of the L, then I was next, and we went out to get the sniper, and sorry.
That's okay.
But the sergeant took 17 rounds from his hip to his shoulder, and I was standing next to him. I grabbed him and picked him up, and the guys said they didn't know how I did it because he was a pretty good sized guy, and I was doing CPR on him as I was carrying him back to the LZ.
Did he make it, Ernest?
No, he did. He was dead. He was actually dead when I was doing CPR on him. But that's one of the times that I really got upset, because I wondered at that time, did I sleep through something that I could have done something more for this man and saved his life? And it happened to be that one of the medics that knew me real well at that short period of time told the doctor, he says, you better go out and talk to, they nicknamed me Cowboy because I rodeoed before I went to Vietnam. You better go talk to Cowboy because he's losing it. And
Understood.
he came out and was talking to me, and he says, Cowboy, he said, I want to tell you something. If this man had been in an OR with 7 doctors right there to work on him that instant, we couldn't have saved him. Because he took 17 rounds from his hip to his shoulder.
There was no way you could save him.
No, he took out every organ was worthwhile, it took out.
Well, there had to be some consolation.
It was, but at the same time, being in the medical field, you know, it's not, because you still wonder, is there something I could have done?
Ernest, did they address these things when you were going through medical school, that these kinds of situations, that
Oh, yeah.
guilt or...
Yeah, because some of the instructors we had were medics in Vietnam before they went to Sam Houston to instruct the kids.
Because that
And
had to be
that's what
a
we
common,
were
common
kids.
emotion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Were did you say that you were always in a certain position when you were out in the field, next to the...
Well, I was for the when I first started, I was assigned to a squad or a platoon, because you're broke up into 4 platoons. And then I was there for just 3 months, and we lost 2 medics. And at that point in time, I was the oldest in-country medic. So I got put into what they call the head medic, which is a 6 Band-Aid. I got put into that position. And so at that point, I walked with the CP, which was in the middle of the company.
CP
It's
is...
command post, which is the main, what would be your command officer and the radio man, and that were basically in the center of the group, so they were more protected. But you still ended up, when we get into a firefight, I was out right on the front lines with the rest of the medics, taking care of the guys. But then I made all the choices of who went with what and how much stuff they got.
Sure. Again, it's another hard question, but do you know how many firefights you were in?
Probably 4 to 5 a month.
A month? Oh my.
And then we had a real bad hit because on November 4th of 1969, we were on the LZ. Charlie Company had just come in. We were supposed to go out that night, and the colonel told us, no, Delta Company, you're staying in, because Charlie Company had just got hit the night before and lost a third of their men. So they kept Delta Company back. The night of the 4th of November, we got hit by a 1.5 regiment of North Vietnamese soldiers. And they actually penetrated the bunkers, and they were inside. That's why there's only about 6 or 8 medics that carry a combat infantry badge also. But we were awarded, because of the officers, we ended up picking up weapons and fighting too, which we usually didn't do a lot of fighting. But we had to, because they were inside our They were, well, carrying a wounded guy back to the aid station. I shot one Vietnamese about 8 foot in front of me.
You said you were next to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. A regiment would be about how many?
1,800.
How did that end up?
We won.
Yeah, of course.
The only reason we won, though, is because Cobras usually, a Cobra gunship usually don't fly very much at night. Well, they brought 8 Cobra gunships out to help us out. And they had Snoopy in the air, who is a flare ship. It was like daylight in the middle of the night. 1 o'clock in the morning, I mean, it would be like sitting in this room. I mean, it was so bright.
Ernest, did you think you were going to make it through that one?
No. We had bullets flying. We could hear bullets whizzing by us as we were carrying wounded back to the aid station. And I thought, well, I just go as long as I can go. If it's my time, God will take me if it's my time. If not, I'll be here to help somebody later.
I am curious, you mentioned, did you have a deep faith at the time?
Oh, yes.
Did you go over with the faith?
Yes.
Did you feel like that really, stupid question, but that really helped you through?
I do. It's hard to explain. At the same time, if I feel it's something that helped me, I still felt that it didn't matter whether you had a real faith or not. If it wasn't your time, you weren't going to go.
You really believe that?
I really believed that. But I felt I was going to go. I didn't think I'd come home. I felt I turned 21 when I was over there, August. And when I first got there, I didn't think I would see my 21st birthday.
For good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 firefights a month. That's astounding. Did you move very far from Tay Ninh, or were you just always in that region?
We was always pretty close to there. We was Tay Ninh, Phuc Vinh, in that whole area right there. And what's it called, the Bird's Mouth. We were in that area there.
Bird's Mountain?
Bird's Mouth.
Mountain.
No, Bird's Mouth.
Mouth, got it. Okay. Did you ever cross over into
Cambodia?
Cambodia?
Yeah, we did. We were one of the first units to go in when they made the final move into Cambodia. We set up an aid station. Just before I left country, we set up an aid station in Cambodia.
Yeah. The whole time you were there, what would you say the morale was like?
I think the morale pretty good, really. I mean, yeah, we had our down times, like November 4th. The next day, our morale was down. I mean, we ended up digging a trench and burying almost 1,800 Viet Cong, Vietnamese. We dug a trench. The engineers brought a cat out, just dug a trench, and all them bodies were just pushed into that trench of the enemy.
I've never heard such a thing.
And see, and that's one thing I have a problem with to this day, is, we brought all our brothers and sisters home. They've got people that whole place where we was at, them people, them families don't know where their sons, daughters, brothers, sisters are at. We dug a trench, put them in there and buried them. There was no markings or nothing.
Ernest, if you were to go back today, you are saying you would know where that mass grave is?
Because everything's changed so much. The jungle grows. That's the thing that people don't realize. That jungle grows so fast. They said that, I've talked to people that have went back, and they said they can't even find the area where LZ Ike was, because the jungle has grown so fast and filled back in. Yeah. Now, if they got coordinates, they could use coordinates and stuff and find it. But to be able to say, yeah, this is where the grave was, I don't know if you could do it. You probably could after a while, with all the instrumentation they have now of locating stuff. You could probably locate all their bodies. But
I've heard different veterans say they're the enemy, but that's someone's son.
Yeah.
That's someone's brother.
They were just like us.
Yeah.
To them, we were their enemy. They were our enemy. But yet, my family was here. I was the son and grandson of people. Well, they have the same thing. So, that's the bad thing about war, is there's no real win. I don't care if you win, there's no real win.
That's right.
Because people lose their family. And when you lose your family, what have you lost?
That's right.
You've lost everything.
That's right. Now, I'm looking at all of those pins on your cap, Ernest. Can you tell some stories behind those pins?
Well, a lot of these are just souvenirs that I bought. But this one here is the main one for me, because that's my combat medic's badge.
Oh yeah, you bet.
I didn't get that until as a medic, you're in combat. This is my unit pin. It's a CAV. The rest of these are just there. These two pins here are the years I served over there, 69 and 70. If I had my CAV hat, then I could tell you more, but I've got, on my CAV hat, I have a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, an Air Medal, a Vietnam Medal, combat infantry and combat medics badge, both.
You've earned them.
And
And having been with 1st Cavalry, it's a very proud division.
Yep.
A job well done. I'm curious, did they have the helicopter aviation companies in the LZ areas?
No.
They were not there.
no, they were back in Tay Ninh at the airstrip there. Yeah, our base, the LZ wasn't big enough for, I mean, we could land a helicopter in there and get take people out, but there was no place to house them because it would have taken more. We had, when we first started, we had 105s and 155 howitzers on the fire support base. But after we were there, I think it was 4 months, they brought in the big guns. They brought in 8-inchers and put in there.
They're big. Yeah.
So we had 3 8-inchers, 3 105s, and 3 155s. And they were there before November 4th, because on November 4th, they were shooting what they call bunker height shots. They were dropping the guns right down to where, when they said fire, everybody hit the ground because they were going just over the top of the bunkers.
So you did a lot of hoofing. There wasn't a lot of helicopter airlift for you guys.
Well, we did quite a bit of helicopter movement, but yeah, they did. We did a lot of walking.
A lot of walking, yeah. Wow. So you were talking about, were you ever hungry? Did you always have adequate rations and water?
We pretty much had all the adequate rations. We got into one firefight where we had been out. We'd been 4 days, so we were running low on water. Most guys carried extra food because you never knew for sure, but we were running low on water, and we got hit, and we did run out of water.
That's critical.
And we had guys that were dehydrating, and this sounds a little bit gross, but they said, "Well, what are we going to do, Doc? We don't have no water for them." And I said, "Piss on them." And the guys go, "What?" I said, "I mean it, literally, pee on them, because your body will absorb the water, but it won't absorb the urine." So that's how we saved quite a few of them guys, is because we literally urinated on them.
Talk about humiliating.
Yes.
You did what you had to do.
You save your brother.
Yeah, you bet. Were you the only medic then with that company?
No. The companies are divided up. You had Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. Each company has 5 medics, all but Echo. Echo only has 2 medics, because that's a mortar platoon. They're a lot smaller group, but there's 5 medics, 1 for each squad, and then 1 for the CP, who is the head medic.
Ernest, did you gain confidence with every firefight and as you further went along there? Because you had to be meeting all kinds of new challenges all the time.
The confidence I had was in the men that we were with. After you're there for long, you knew who you could depend on, who would be right there with you, who would be up front, who would be in the right place at the right time. And we got really bad. We got nicknamed, Delta Company got nicknamed No DEROS Delta. And if anybody knows, DEROS means that's the date you get out of the military, out of Vietnam. We got nicknamed No DEROS Delta because we were losing so many people. It's one of them things where you learn to trust the person next to you. And as
buddy system.
Yeah, and as the head medic, a lot of guys would go, "Well, you didn't have to go out front." I said, "No, I didn't." But I knew that my other medics had a whole squad to take care of. All I had was 4 or 5 guys at the CP, so if we got guys wounded out front, a lot of times, because I had 2 guys that were machine gunners that covered for me when I went out. So I would go out and bring the wounded guys back. And I lost one of my machine gunners. He got killed over there. The captain and the colonel offered me and the other machine gunner the right to escort his body home from Vietnam. And I said, no. And so did the machine gunner. He says, why?
Yeah, because.
He says, why don't you want to escort, honor this? I said, I'm going to honor him more by staying here, because if I go home, you'll never see me again.
Yeah. Ernest, did you ever meet the families afterward?
Of the medics I lost?
Oh, yeah, or any of those that you lost around you?
No.
Never met them again?
I wrote letters home to the 4 medics that got killed while I was in country that they were served under me. I wrote letters home to them.
You lost 4 medics under you?
In a year, I lost 4 medics.
It's almost too much almost too much for one person.
But that's the way it was.
Yeah.
One of the medics, his family lived just down the river. But from here, but I couldn't go. I just, at that time, when I got back home, I couldn't face that kind of stuff. I couldn't even face the people.
And I do want to definitely talk about your return home in just a few minutes, but you were literally, were there caves around that area?
Caves?
Caves? None.
Or
tunnels, I should say, tunnels.
We were just jungle. We were strictly jungle and rice paddies.
Yeah.
We did a lot of medical work with the villagers.
Did you?
We treated a lot. See, and that's the thing that really, what would you say, what irked me about the media. They never talked about the good things that the American soldiers did over there. All they could talk about is how much tragedy we took.
Still doing it.
Yeah. But we went what they called med caps. And we would go into the villages and treat the villagers that were wounded, that were sick, even that weren't caused by us. We treated them.
Were you well received by them?
Mm-hmm. Loved us.
Happy to see you.
When one day a captain and I went into Tay Ninh, we stopped at a little restaurant. We'd been in there doing a med cap. We stopped at a restaurant to eat, and I just happened to glance back down the hall, and I seen Papa San sitting there with his arm. He was holding his arm, and his arm was almost turning blue. That's how bad his arm was infected. And I looked at Mama San and I says, "What's wrong with Papa San?" She says, "He got shot." I said, "You didn't take him to the hospital?" She said, "No, because the North Vietnamese would kill him, because he'd been shot by North Vietnamese because he was helping the Americans." I said, "Will he let me work on him?" She says, "Yeah." So I went back, and the bullet was still in his arm. So I literally lanced the bullet, took the bullet out, treated it, and then told her what to do. And then 2 weeks later, we were going back to do another med cap. So I checked on him, and we just did it. But we were so received that anytime I went into that little restaurant, I couldn't pay for anything.
Yeah, you're almost like a god to them. Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever reflect back and you just think, wonder what ever happened to all those people?
Yeah.
You know, the little kids.
Because you were there. Mm-hmm. You know that very few of them had twins, because they put the twins out when one died and they would bring them. Mm-hmm. She had a pair of twin girls. Mm-hmm. And I always wondered, whatever happened to them twin girls? Mm-hmm. Especially after we left, because you know what happened when we left. the North Vietnamese came down, the communists killed thousands of them people.
So, when you were there, Ernest, did you, and again, I always say this is not a trick question, but you saw a real cause for being there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And your cause, what you thought the cause was to fight the communists?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, going forward, were you ever injured when you were there?
Yeah, I got a Purple Heart.
You do. Do you mind sharing that story, how that happened?
Well, all of it, I should have got 2, but I only got 1. I got hit by shrapnel in the leg. I took that out myself and treated it and stayed right in the field. We got hit by a mortar attack, and I stepped in a mortar crater and tore my ankle up. I was in a cast for 3 months in the field.
In the field?
In a cast.
Could you do that?
Oh, yeah.
You did it?
They call what they call a honey cast. You know what a honey cast is? A honey cast is you have your boot on, and then they make a plaster cast that folds up around it, and then you strap it. So
and
it
you
keeps
were in the field in that condition?
Yeah.
My gosh.
Well, you had
it?
to. You didn't have replacements. There wasn't. The replacements weren't there. The medical replacements weren't there.
Did they call you Doc?
No. We took nicknames.
Well, who were you?
Cowboy.
Oh, you said that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
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 When I first got there, they were doing doc and medic, and that's when you were getting hit. And I said, no. I told all the medics, I says, pick a nickname. Get your squad and your platoon. And I says, and nobody calls you doc or medic. They call you by your nickname.
Yeah. Smart.
And so that's what we did.
Yeah, very smart. Were you having communication from home all this time?
I had a letter. I don't know how my mom and my grandmother did it, but I had a letter from my mom every day, and I had a letter from my grandmother almost every other day.
And you got them?
I got them. I mean, sometimes it would be, I'd be 3 weeks before I'd get them, so I'd get a stack of mail like.
Nice. And were you able to communicate back with them?
Yes.
Pretty often?
I could write. Anytime I got a chance to write. I mean, if we were fighting, it's pretty hard to write, but. And then I got a call home twice because 2 of the representatives had it open where we could go in and make a phone call.
Isn't that amazing? Into your mother's house?
Yep.
Pretty unreal.
And they were able to notify the family I was going to call so that like my grandmother and my grandfather and them could be at the house.
And thrilled to death to hear your voice. Did they actually know what you were doing?
Not 100%.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them.
Of course not. Yeah.
If my mom would have known some of the stuff I had,
Yeah, it would have been horribly stressful. Were you able to take any R&R over there?
I had the opportunity to take an R&R, but I took an R&R, in-country R&R, because when they did that, they offered us a month early out. So instead of spending 12 months in Vietnam, I only spent 11 months.
Where did you go in country?
I went to Saigon, to the
Okay.
hospital to see the guys that were going home.
Yeah.
Because it's something that a lot of people in the civilian life don't realize, the camaraderie and the closeness you become.
That's right. Band of brothers.
Some of them are closer to me than my brother was.
Yeah, I believe that. Under very tight conditions, very straight, like you said, you're leaning on each other for your very life.
Yep.
And not most of us understand that. Yeah. Well, boy, I could just go another hour here. So you came to the end of your tour. Were you able to go into base camp then before you went home?
Yeah, I was in the rear for a month and a half. We got hit. I was supposed to be back there for 3 months, but my company got hit. They lost 2 more medics. So I volunteered to go back for at least a month and a half until they got some replacements. So I went back out in the field for a month and a half, so I only had a month and a half in the rear before I went home.
You were a short timer and you still went back out because of your buddy system.
My brothers.
Yep, I get it.
I had to be there to protect them, do what I could.
And they knew it, Ernest, they knew it. And you've got a great name, Ernest.
Thank you.
It's a prophetic name, yeah, Ernest, that's great. Well, you got to base camp and got processed out. How was that for you to fly home when those wheels lifted off? What was that like for you?
Well, that felt good, but a story in between there and Okinawa, Japan, the plane I was with, because I came back with the buddy that I went into the company with. We were on the plane going back home together.
Wow.
We hit an air pocket with a downdraft. Our plane dropped a mile in 3 seconds. It tore the seats out of the plane. It put 8 GIs and 4 stewardess in the hospital. And my buddy and I were both sitting, some reason we were sitting almost in the middle of the plane. And he says, "Cowboy, what do we do?" I said, "You go forward, I'll go aft. We'll critique everything. We'll meet at the back of the plane and we'll decide what we're going to do."
Unbelievable. Your job was not done. Oh, I just want to get home.
Well, that's what I thought.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure this is where we're going to finish up.
My goodness. Did you land somewhere?
We stopped at Okinawa, Japan. It's been 8 hours
Yeah.
while they went over that plane with a fine-tooth comb.
You got back on the same plane?
Yep.
wouldn't.
There was eight GIs in the hospital and 4 stewardesses, and there was 4 other GIs that refused to get back on the plane.
You can't plane.
The rest of us got on the plane and came home. But the real bad part about it that really irritated me and my buddy both, there was 2 nurses that came back and helped us. But there was 2 doctors that sat up front and never got out of their seats.
Bad. Very bad.
And I thought,
Yeah, very bad. Yeah, very bad. So you did your conscience thing, and you felt good about it. Where did you...
I said things to that colonel that most people would have been in jail for.
Legitimate. That's legitimate. Where did you finally land?
In California.
At Travis?
Yeah.
Travis.
And we landed on Friday morning. They says, if you guys don't clear out by 10 o'clock Friday night, you're going to have to spend the weekend here. And I got right at the middle of the line and I said, guys, split her off into 3 groups because there was 3 different places you had to go. I said, we're cleared out of here because I'm not spending the weekend in this godforsaken camp.
But you didn't have any bad reception when you came back?
Not there. Not there. We were received okay there.
Did you later?
When I came to Pasco, yes.
Really? I'm very surprised. Do you mind sharing that?
I got off, when I finally got cleared out, I called my folks, let them know when I would be landing at Pasco Airport. My mom and dad, my sister and her son, and my grandmother were there to meet me. I got off the plane and walked down. At that time, Pasco Airport ain't what it is now. Had to walk down the stairs to get out of the plane. Walked into the terminal, and I got met by one of the prettiest blonde, beautiful women I ever seen in my life. And she says, where are you coming from? I says, well, I just got out of the military. I just left Vietnam. And she looked at me and she says, how does it feel to be a baby killer and spit on me in my dress greens? And that is the only woman in my life that I felt like taking my fist and driving right through her face The only reason I didn't hit her, my grandmother put her arms around me and said, "Welcome home."
Wow, Ernest, wow, wow. There must have been incredibly emotional welcome, though. Your home. How did that feel, other than that terrible person, how did it feel to touch American soil again?
Fantastic.
Yeah. What did you do for a little while? Did you just be quiet, or what did you do?
At that time, state of Washington was giving out a $10,000 discharge to the veterans. I took the money, bought a car, and I traveled for about 4 months.
Did that feel good?
I had to.
Yeah.
My body was so tensed up all the time. And then shortly after that, my great-granddad, my grandmother's dad, who rode with Buffalo Bill Cody, was in the nursing home, and he was having a lot of trouble. And she hadn't seen him in 5 years. And I was at home, and Mom called. She said, "What are you doing?" I says, "Sitting here." And she said, "Grandma would like to..."
Unknown call.
Grandma would like to go see her dad, but she don't have the money. I said, "What?" She says, "Great-grandpa's in the nursing home, and he's not doing real well, and she would like to go down and see him." I said, "You tell Grandma at 5 o'clock Saturday morning to be ready to go, because we're going to Colorado." And Mom told Grandma, she says, "Your grandson said be ready at 5 o'clock Saturday morning. We're going to Colorado." And she says, "Well, I can't do that. I don't have the money." And I heard her say that. And I said, "Well, you tell Grandma she's either ready or she's going in her pajamas." So 5 o'clock Saturday morning, I went over, we picked my grandmother up, and we went to Grand Junction, Colorado to see my great-granddad.
Great memories, that's great. Well, Ernest, fast forward then, you settled back here, and then what have you been doing since?
I've done a lot of things. I've been married and divorced twice. I've had about 6 different jobs. I started out working for a farmer, then I went in to work for Central Premix. I drove for them for 5 years. I got in a hassle with them because of conflicts, because of stuff that was happening with me that I didn't understand at that time. So I quit them. I went to work for another outfit. I worked for them for 3 years. Same thing happened. I went to work in Oregon on a cattle ranch. I worked there for 3.5 years, which I loved. And me and the foreman got into it because they didn't understand me and I didn't understand what I was going through.
Sure.
I finally got back here, and I got a cousin that owned an electrical contracting company. He says, "You go to school, get your electrician's license." He says, "I'll put you to work." So I worked for him for 12 years, but he understood a lot more because he was in the military. And he put me on jobs where I was by myself, where I didn't have to work with somebody else. And that's how I handled that. And then I started with my own company. I built houses for almost 10 years here in the Tri-Cities.
Good.
And then finally, my mom had a stroke, and she couldn't do anything, and my sister had to work to keep her stuff going, so I shut my company down and took care of my mom till she passed. And the year after she passed, I got in with a counselor, and he got me disabled, or 80%, and then I got with another counselor and finally got 100% disability.
All right. Well deserved, Ernest. Well deserved. So are you affiliated with any veterans organizations today?
I'm with the DVA, I'm with the VFW,
Good.
I'm with the veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America.
Excellent.
I also have, I work with a counselor now that we have a big group that we meet.
Excellent.
And then there's a bunch of us vets that meet every Monday at Carl's Jr. at lunchtime and have lunch together just to
Excellent.
BS and everything.
Yeah. And getting back to the brothers.
Brothers.
Yep. Who understand.
The ones you can trust.
The ones you understand each other.
Yep.
And so you're very active. Today, I wouldn't call you retired. There's some final questions, hardly. By the way, I would like you to mention any family members' names that mean a lot to you for this DVD.
Family members' names?
If you want to name any names that we know, or your mom, or in honor of your memory of your mom.
My mom is Eunice Ruth McColley, which her
Eunice.
maiden name was Acorn.
All right. Your grandmother?
My grandmother is Valma Acorn.
All right. Just to
Yeah.
commemorate them, yeah.
And then my sister was really helpful with me. She's done a lot for me. She was a CNA at Cadillac for 32 years.
And her name?
Joyce McColley.
Joyce, okay. Any children?
I have no children.
So, yeah, okay, I want to make sure that those
Yeah, no,
family members were
I have no
included.
children.
Well, how would you say that your service and experiences affected your life?
Drastically. They've changed my life 100%. I've had, my sister has really opened my eyes about a couple of things that when I came back, I didn't realize how bad I was. But only about 4 or 5 years ago, she finally told me one day, she says, Ernie, she says, you know, when you left for Vietnam, you were an ornery young boy. But she says, when you came back, you were a mean son of a bitch. And I didn't realize that until my nephews, we talked. I got 2 nephews that live over the coast. And we had a birthday party for my brother for his 65th birthday over there. And there's two great nephews, or whatever you want to call them, my nephew's kids. And we had a big birthday party. And I was sitting out on the deck on my nephew's house, and the 3 nephews that I helped raise quite a bit came out. And they said, Uncle Ernie, we want to thank you for what you did for us. But we want to tell you, you were a mean bastard.
I guess you got the message.
Yeah. But, you know, it made me realize that there's a lot of us vets that have the same problem. We don't realize how broke and tore up we really are. And sometimes it takes a family member to open your eyes to say, you need to do something.
But they could never walk in your shoes, Ernie.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
But they still can help. And that's the thing I look at with, we give a lot of talks at, like Highlands Middle School. We had a deal there. They give us a reception for being veterans and stuff. And I say, you know, they ask, what can we do for veterans? And I said, the best thing you can do is just thank a vet. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just thank them for their service. Tell them
You
you
always welcome that. Thank you for your service.
just
And never
appreciate
control.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. You don't have to make a big elaborate deal out of it. Just thank them for it.
Yeah. That's
means-
nice to hear again. Yeah. Yeah, good messages, Ernie. Boy, I feel like I've missed things to ask you. Is there anything that you would like to add that I may have not asked or missed?
No, I think you did a very good job. You covered everything. The biggest thing is that people need to realize that veterans don't act the way they do because they want to be that way.
That's right.
Our lives have been changed. We were put into, and most veterans are, but they're put into something at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20 years old,
That's right.
into life and death situations instantly.
That's right.
And that's the biggest thing that people don't realize is one day you're with 4 or 5 guys and the next day there's only 2 of you.
That's right.
Because 3 of them have just been killed.
That's right. I would like to ask you if you've ever been to the Vietnam Memorial, the wall.
No, I haven't. Since I came back from Vietnam, I've only flown on a plane twice.
Yeah.
But I'm with a vet now that's become a real good friend. He's from Seattle. He was a Cobra pilot in Vietnam, and he was also a Medivac pilot. I didn't know him over there because he was after I was there. But he has finally convinced me where they've got a setup here to take veterans back, fly back, and it looks like probably April or May.
Honor flight in Spokane?
The honor flight, we're gonna fly back.
I was an escort, I highly recommend it. Yeah.
We're gonna fly back.
Great.
And he says, I'll be with you all the time. And I said, if you don't go, I'm not going.
Yeah. It's gonna be emotional.
Oh, it's good. When the second time I flew after I came back, the stewardess walked up to me because I had a hold of the deal and my knuckles and hands were turning white. I just don't trust airplanes.
Yeah, for good reason.
So
Yeah, but
I'm putting a big trust in him that we're going to go okay.
that's wonderful. Your buddy.
Yep.
Your buddy. That's fantastic. But I do get emotional because I just love and appreciate you guys so much for how much you've suffered and the sacrifices you've made. A Korean War veteran told me, you never get over war, and that's always stuck with me, and I do believe it.
Yeah.
But thank you on short notice to be willing to share your story today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're an amazing, courageous man. Thank you.